Hi guys, EDMacDesigns here. I've got a quick tutorial here for you in Lightroom 4. This will also work in Lightroom 3, I believe. We're going to be looking at the print module uh, in this tutorial. I've been away recently with work and various other issues, so I think it'd be nice to start back again with a nice Lightroom tutorial. I've got quite a few photographer friends on Facebook who are always looking for help and new ideas and whatnot. So previously, a few months ago, we went through the introduction of Lightroom, how it benefits you, what it does, why you should use it, and I provided you with a free CR2 image. Um, Today, we're going to be skipping most of the modules up here. I mean, map, book, and slideshow, they're not really going to be used that much unless it is your specialty or it is something that you want to play with. But generally for me it's just library, develop, print and web, and that's about it. Generally what I used to do is export the image as a JPEG or a TIFF and then print that with an external renderer, like in this case with Mac AV Preview. But recently I've started using the actual Lightroom print module purely for its power and control. And excuse my phone there. I just want to show you a quick little thing that I generally do to make some photos look a little bit better. This works really well on portraits or people, and the majority of my client photos are printed in this matter, just to add some definition to the photo more than anything. So when you've got your photo selected, what you want to come and do is come up to the print module up here in the top right, and this is pretty much what you should get. You have a couple of Lightroom templates here. It's probably best to start with these. These are very powerful. You can basically select what you want to be printed. So in this case, it's going to be printed a 5x7 at full bleed. So that's borderless, no border at all. Even though there's currently a border here, that's just to do with the Lightroom settings. And the printer, well, it's down to your printer. So first and foremost, what we need to do first is come down to your page setup down here. Now in here, you need to select your printer. So if you've got one, it'll probably be selected. But be careful, if it's on any printer, a lot of the settings will not work. So make sure it is set to the correct printer. Then that will give you the relevant paper sizes for your printer. So currently in my printer, there is 7x5 paper. So I'm going to go to 7x5 or 5x7 in this case and select borderless. I want to make sure it's borderless. Now, you may not get a borderless and you may not get 7x5. This is because not all printers can print borderless, and secondly, not all printers have fixed dimensions. Like currently being is 4x6. Now, if I change the printer to the Canon one, it says 10x15 in centimeters. So different printers have different options. Now, obviously, you're going to want to select the paper that you have in that printer. Again, in my case, it's 7x5, and this is pretty much just the orientation. It's going to print off the same regardless, pretty much, as long as the image was developed in that mode. In terms of scale, well, this is only really useful if you plan to either say print one photo over 4 7x5s, or if you just want to zoom in a little bit, which kind of defeats the point when you can just develop it and crop it in develop mode. So after we're happy with that, we want to go and press OK. Now all your settings here should be correct to what you are using. So again, 7x5 and full bleed. Full bleed does mean borderless. And then your printer. If anything is wrong by here, and say you're using an A4 on a Canon Pixma, then you need to make sure that it's selected here and here. This is your overview. After that, we want to come down to print settings. Now, this is going to vary again on printer and on Windows. Windows lays it out a little bit different, and you generally get your own printer's software. With Mac, and I believe Linux does it too, you generally have this fixed menu, which again varies from printer to printer, but there is no generic Canon um, dialogue or Brother dialogue. It is just the same preview, if you like. But you want to make sure that color matching is turned off. If you have no color matching option or you have no color profiles, it doesn't matter. Ignore it for now. We're going to overwrite it anyway, but that's the important thing. The rest of it's not really important, but you want to try and find where you have your print settings, so you can tell the printer, well, it's photo paper and I want to print it in color, etc., etc. Now this is probably the most used option on any printer. Obviously I'm not going to want to print on best photo quality if I'm just printing off a text document. So from media type, now this is very important, people just tend to go, oh well, photo paper, but that's not the case. And again, the paper type generally changes when you change your paper size. So the printer knows that you can't get certain paper that's 7x5. So generally other photo paper is what I'll choose. However, if you are using a Canon printer with Canon paper, then make sure you tell the printer what paper, because that way it knows how much ink to disperse, drying times, brightness, contrast, how the paper develops, etc., etc. Print quality, either photo or best, it doesn't really make a difference. Perhaps on some printers it does. I suppose if it's for your personal use, then put it on photo or anything above normal. If it's for a customer or a client, or you're sending it away, or it's anything that's not for your personal use, I'd probably put it on best. You generally get an error, not an error, but more of a pop-up dialog, and this just says to be careful because the resolution is such a high one, it may take a while to send the document to the printer. Most printers are USB or FireWire, so you shouldn't have a problem, but in this case my printer is connected through Wi-Fi, so if I choose the best mode, I'm going to have about a 25-second time to transfer the image to the printer. It's just to let you know that it is being received, so don't cancel it or think there's something wrong. It just takes a little bit longer to transfer the information from the machine to the printer. And then okay, color grayscale, always in color, because it's assumed you've changed your color black and white in the develop module in Lightroom. If you put that on grayscale, then all of your black and white, if you have a black and white portrait, for example, will be void, because this is taking over. And then, last but not least, double check on this dialog too that the correct printer is selected. And then that's pretty much it. You want to save that, and as you can see, everything still looks the same, nothing has changed. But you know now that when you print, whatever's on this screen is going to print that way on that paper. Now, be it the size you've selected, the quality you've selected on the paper and printer you've selected. So now we need to get rid of this ugly two white bars. Now these happen for one simple reason. The ratio of the paper isn't the same as the ratio of the photo. Some lower end digital cameras have fixed aspect ratios. Most DSLRs, you can change the aspect ratio. The majority of photos are taken in 4:3. That's what mine is. You can set it to 16:9 or a 1:1 square image, but 4:3 is the generic standard. So to get rid of these, we need to tick zoom to fill, which is behind the image settings. Now once you click zoom to fill, you're going to lose a slight bit of the photo. So if it's a close-up photo or portrait and you can't afford to lose any of that detail, then I probably wouldn't recommend clicking it. and I'd find a different way to work around it. But if you click it, you should see that those two white lines have gone. Now you may get a little bleed down by here. It's not really going to be there. For some reason, Lightroom and other things, the way they handle the printer driver isn't always 100% accurate. It's trying to soft proof your image, so it's trying to render how it thinks the printer will print it. Now, you know, the printer said the board at us, the printer will always overprint, even by a tenth of a millimeter. So this white bar will not be here. Rotate the fill. Now, this one is generally always ticked for me. What that does is, let's say I've got it on landscape and it should be a portrait. Well, if rotate the fit is there, it's going to make that photo fit whichever way it should. So when you print it, it doesn't matter if it's landscape or portrait, it'll print it the correct way. Otherwise, it can get a little bit confusing. So if your photo doesn't look right or looks as if it's the wrong way, just try giving rotate the fit a little tick and see if that aligns the photo for you. Repeat one photo per page. Now, with Lightroom, you can print off your entire catalogue with one button. Now, whether you have one photo per page or you have a contact sheet with 45 photos per page, this will determine if it prints them all on the same page or various different pages. So if I was to select a template by here, so I don't know, let's take that one, you could take 2 images on the same page. Well, I could print both of my images by here on that same document. But if I didn't want to, for some reason, perhaps it's a proofing request, or your client wants a soft image to check first before it's purchased, you can just tick that box and it'll print them on 2 separate pages, so they don't conflict with each other, which I suppose in turn will also compete with each other. So that's, you know, that's down to your needs more than anything. Now, stroke border. This is quite a cool one. You generally see a lot of photographs which may, I don't know, be in mounts. They may be real mounts. They may be false mounts. Mounts can get a bit expensive. The bigger you go, the more they cost, the quality. So what I tend to do, if your client's on a budget, or if they're for your own use, or you're sending them to a company to hang on the wall for you, there's no point in you buying a mount just to add more to your costs. I just tend to add a bit of a stroke, and obviously the higher the stroke, the bigger it is. So I tend to put it up as high as possible. And what you can do then is you can change the colour from black. So let's have a look here. Now when this appears, you may get a little bit confused. Why is it all just black and white? It's all grayscale. No matter where you pick, it's still black and white, yet this is changing colour. This here is your saturation. So if you want it coloured, just bring it right up. That way you can see all the colours available. So what we're going to do, because it's a it's a landscape photo, it's a bit different. So let's change the colour to be a bit different. Let's go for a darkish blue stroke. Okay, let's click off that. And currently it doesn't look the best. You know, it's a bit different, but who really wants a blue stroke that's that thick around their photo? But if you come here and you play with your margins, you're going to line the photo left and right, different sizes. But again, we want it full size, so you don't need to play with the margins. Your page grid, if you want more than one photo, this is quite cool. If you wanted to add a second photo here, we can just select that one too, and now we've got the both photos on the one page. It's a bit different, but I don't want that. I just want the one. So we make sure that our one image is selected. You've got to be careful. If you've got 100 photos here and they're all selected, you may press the wrong button and they may all print. But what we want to see is cell size by here. If we bring the cell size down and down that way, so we've got more of the image is smaller on the paper than what you think it should be. So it now appears that we have two strokes. Well, in effect, we kind of do. And we're not doing this to save ink or toner or whatever you plan to print on. The reason why we can do this is we can click by here on page and tick page color and then click in the box, and it's the same principle. You bring it up if you want it colored, and you can, if you really want to try something a bit different, completely change the background image. But if we bring this down back to the blues and more there like that, now you can see we've got a very off black with a blue tint page color. Now if you think back to the old Microsoft Office 2000 days and previous, if you change the background color, in theory you'd think that it would change the color of the paper when it's printed, but it didn't. It's still printed on white. It was assumed that the printer had paper in it that was that background color, which is kind of very impractical because the odds on you having a specific screen to print color is going to be very slim. But what this will do, it will print that image like that. Even though my paper is gloss white, when it's finished, it will look like that with the two strokes and the background color, that background color, which is very nice. It adds definition, and that way you can kind of see then, well, perhaps this blue is a bit too blue then. What if we bring it down, and change the color tones? So now the both strokes fit a lot better with the actual image. By here you've got identity plates. You can put them on. This is normally a proofing thing. If you've just done a wedding shoot and you're sending sample photos to the bride and groom for them to proof before giving you the consent to print off and batch them, you generally put some sort of proof over them. I'm guessing if your parents and you've received your child's school photos, or if your children yourselves in school and you receive school photos, they generally always have proof. Or if it's a little bit less professional, the photographer's name all over it. And it's just purely there so you don't steal the image. But at the same time, you can see the image and you can see the quality of when it's going to be printed. That's purely the reason why that's there. Or it could be used just purely for your own sake to protect your work. But where it goes is limited. It's generally the center of the page or nothing. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can bring the opacity down, but I tend to leave it off. If you really want to add your name or signature, or just add a watermark, I mean, if you want to sign your photos and you've got a scanner, or you signed it on a nice clean brilliant white bit of paper, photograph it, scan it in, crop it out, kill the white in Photoshop and drop your signature as a PNG in as a watermark. I mean, it has a personal touch, and it will look signed, but obviously you and I both know it's not. But again, these two generally aren't really used, again, unless you're protecting your own work. You can choose to print the photo info, like file names, exposures, equipment, what camera and lens was this taken on, which can be quite cool for educational purposes. But I generally don't print it unless maybe you're hosting lessons or tutorials and you want your class to know the settings and the camera model and whatnot. Then otherwise I'd probably leave that off. And font size, again, it's just to change the photo info. If you put it back on and change the font size, as you can see, it just gets bigger and smaller, but yeah, pretty obvious, I suppose. Right, print job. This is the important part and also the last part. print to printer. Well, you may think, well, yeah, what else is it going to print to? Well, Lightroom can print to a JPEG as well, which you may think is the same as exporting the image, but it's not, because when you export the image, it exports it as your screen color profile. There are ways to change that, but it's not really recommended. So if you print to a JPEG, you can actually set your color management. So if you're using the international standard, or if you're using Adobe RGB, sRGB, you can set your color profile and it will export the JPEG with those color profiles. So if you need to send that photo to a professional printer and have it blown up, let's say Photobox have given you an offer where if you buy 100 photos you get a free poster, and you want this as the poster, you export it as a JPEG and the color profile will be ready for them to just print. Again, it's even for online use, but it's not used too much for online because online has obviously web colors, so different again. And that's a good little note to make there. If your photos look different from the camera to Lightroom to Paint to Preview to a printer to the internet, it's all down to the profiling. There's different modes on the camera. I know Canon DSLRs ship with two. You can either use the Adobe RGB, which I believe is from 1998. There is a 2004 version of that file now, but it doesn't make a great difference. And there's the sRGB, which is the standard red, green and blue profile. If you're going to do mainly web work, I'd probably use the Adobe RGB profile. If you're going to be printing, it's probably best to use the sRGB profile, as that's what they're meant for. But don't be concerned if colours are off or this doesn't look quite right, but that's what it's for. Draft mode printing, we don't want that. That just defeats pretty much everything that we've set over here in the beginning of the video. Print resolution. Now this printer can support up to, I believe it's 350 ppi, but 240 is always perfect. You play around with that as need be. Print sharpening, I tend to leave that as standard. It just adds a little bit of crispness to the image. Media type, glossy. And don't forget, even though we said it previously, this is the actual dialog box right here that the printer is going to listen to, because we're going to tell it to. Now if you've got a 16-bit printer, like the Canon Pixma 9000 series, you can tick that, but again it doesn't really make a difference. Color management, as you can see here, it says managed by printer. We don't want that. We want to manage it from Lightroom. So this is the profile that I currently use, sRGB, and then the international code. You will have your printers ones here. If you've got a Canon Pixma IP 4650, say, you will have all of the Canon Pixma IP 450s profiles, and you just pick the one that corresponds to what you're doing, and they will literally be called printer make, printer model, and then say photo best glossy paper, and in this case that's what it is. If it's not there, you can click other, and this will bring up a full list of profiles that are on your machine. Some will be display profiles, so be careful of that. As you can see, I've got Canon profiles and Brother profiles. So I would pick, well, it's a Brother, it's photo paper, and I've set it to best. So it would kind of be that, but at the same time, that's the wrong photo paper. So we need the other photo paper, which is by here. So we tick the box, press OK, and it would load. But because I've taken the images on an sRGB profile on the camera, I'm going to use this profile. So I know that when this is printed, it will look as close to that as possible. Because all three, the camera, my iMac and my printer, are all running off the same color profile. Again, to you, colours may seem a little bit off on this YouTube video as to what you were currently looking at, but it's not the case. It's how the image is taken in the camera will always represent through each stage of your production, editing and printing, all the exact colour profiles as you go. So just keep that in mind. That's very, very important. It can be a bit confusing. You can calibrate your screens. Just do a quick Google search on how to calibrate in Windows whatever or Mac OS X whatever, and chances are the first second link will help you out with there. So yeah, we want to make sure that our color profile is selected. If you haven't got a color profile, you can always click manage by printer, and that will divert back then to when we first started this tutorial with those two boxes down here, our page setup and print settings, where you set all the important information, and Lightroom will go, well, because we don't know what profile to use, we listen to the printer and assume that it knows what to do. And it should know what to do because we've set it up. So really, we don't need to set it up in the beginning, but we do it as a failsafe. Just in case there's a mix-up or the profile is wrong, we do it as a failsafe. Intent, it doesn't really make a difference. Relative is generally quite decent. It tries to keep the profile as close as possible. But that's just down to trial and error pretty much. And print adjustments. I generally turn on print adjustments and stick them both up by 10. Purely because it adds just a little bit more detail to the images. Because don't forget, your screen is backlit. A piece of paper is only illuminated because it is white. But when you print on that white bit of paper, it's no longer illuminated. So you're going to want to add a little bit of brightness and contrast to the image just to balance it out a little bit. And when you're done and you're happy with all your settings and your image on screen looks how you want it to print, you select print 1. Do not press print. If you press print, it will print however many photos you have in your timeline. So I've just been to a wedding and I've edited 500 photos and they are ready to be mass exported, and I'm sending them off to a professional printer to print for me. If I press print thinking that I'm going to print the image as selected as a test print to see how things look, I'm going to be in for a bit of a surprise, and it's going to print all 500. Obviously you can cancel that and whatever, but it may not be worth it. Just in case you press print and think, well, I'm going to pop downstairs, have a cup of coffee, perhaps you haven't got the fastest print in the world, perhaps you're printing on A3 plus in size, so you disappear for 10-20 minutes, and when you come back you've got 45 prints of things that you didn't want. So that's pretty much that, guys. Again, print 1, it'll send it straight to the printer, and that is as simple as that. If you don't like this, I mean, there's loads here of Lightroom templates. You can change these, you can make your own. You make your own by coming to custom package. And here you can set, what cells you want. So if I want a 6x4 image, there it is. And perhaps I click here and I go edit, and I want a 0.2 inches, which it won't let me, okay, by 0.5. And add that, and then I can add that second image. It's a random size, but you see the drift. And then after you've built these, you simply save it, and you can come back to your picture package and load it up. I haven't saved this for the purpose. When you save it, they get saved in the user templates. So when you pick your saved package or template, you can see what it's going to generate instantly on the screen for you. So I hope this tutorial has been of some use to you guys. The hardest thing with the print module is going to be the color profiles. If you need help with color profiles, I can always do a dedicated tutorial on it and try and explain a little bit about it. One final note, there's a few Facebook groups and another YouTube channel that's been recently created to assist in Lightroom and Photoshop and tutorials and photography in general. I'll post these in the description below. They may be of some use to you. One of the Facebook groups is called the Photography Learning Centre, and as my good friend Anthony, or DigiHill on Flickr, has posted recently, everyone thinks they're a good enough photographer. You're never good enough. You never know it all. So don't be afraid to like the page, get involved, show us your work, show us your tips, your hints. It would be nice for everybody to learn off somebody else and have a nice community going. So yeah, I'll post the links to both his channel and the Facebook links and the Photographer Universe Flickr page. So let me know how you guys get on with this, and next time I think we will do a on-camera tutorial. So watch this space, guys, and I shall see you